Hello, everybody. Tracy Mrs. JDog Flanagan with you here today. I'm the co-founder and senior vice president at JDog Brands. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tactical Treasures podcast, sponsored by the JDog Foundation. Our podcast gives veterans, male spouses, active military members, and military family members a voice in the veteran space to speak about their service, how they're affecting their communities post-service, and they share with me a tactical treasure that has shaped their journey in their military career, business, or life. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jim Schirtzinger, who is a Navy veteran, having joined immediately after high school and serving for 13 years. He served on two ships, the USS John F. Kennedy and the USS Hugh City, and completed a 4-year tour as a recruiter. He deployed twice, once to the Mediterranean during the Bosnia Herzegovina conflict and once to the Caribbean for counter-drug operations. Post-service, Jim had a 15-year career as an IT staffing agent involved with recruiting, sales, marketing, and management. In the late 2020, Jim decided to pursue business ownership and found JDog. He opened up his JDog junk removal and hauling territory in June 2021, and in June 2024 will reach the 3-year mark of business ownership. Jim is excited about his future as a JDog franchise owner. Jim, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to a JDog who is part of our JDog family. So this is really awesome that you agreed to come on. I'd love to hear about, what led you to join the Navy.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Tracy. I do appreciate it. So when I was in high school, I was not a very good student, and I didn't feel like college was the best foot forward for me coming out of high school. And just so happened that the girl that I was dating in high school, her uncle was a Navy recruiter. And so she suggested that I go talk to him and assured me that I would get the full straight scoop from him, being a relative of hers. And so I went and talked to him, and of course, like anyone, I was encouraged to talk to all the branches, which I did. But I ultimately came back to the Navy. I love traveling, and I felt like the Navy was going to be the way to do that because most of the other, I think, branches tend to go to a location, and of course they deploy. But the Navy's moving, ships out going in different places, and that really appealed to me. So that's why I joined.
Oh, awesome. So is there a particular aspect or moment from your service that stood out as impactful in a positive way?
So many parts of being in the military, I think, were impactful on my life. Starting very early on in boot camp, and going through that whole process, and where they kind of break you down to the lowest common denominator amongst the whole group, and then they build you back up as a team. And that was impactful for me. The whole element of camaraderie and teamwork, and being part of a group that all has a common mission and a common goal. And those were things I think that I've really carried on throughout my professional career post military. As far as individual events go, I mean, deploying to the Mediterranean, being in the no-fly zone or enforcing the no-fly zone during the Bosnia Herzegovina conflict was very interesting. We were sitting about 10 miles off the coast, and at night you could see the tracer bullets going back and forth on land where the
Oh,
conflict
wow.
was occurring. And of course, we weren't there to be involved in the conflict. We were just there to make sure that everybody was playing by the rules, so to speak. And
Okay. If
so,
that's possible
right,
during a
I mean, it's
conflict.
war, so
Right.
always been intrigued by the idea of rules in war. But that's what we were there for, just to be the big brother paying attention to what the little guys were doing. And I mean, not that, you know, you know what I mean.
Right, I know. I got you. Um, so what was it like living on a ship? I can't imagine. Like I know I've heard that, being on a sub is a different breed of Navy guy. To be able
Yeah,
to be underneath the water, living in those closed corners, like
yeah. You couldn't pay me enough to do that.
yeah, I have a claustrophobic attack just thinking about it. And I've always been intrigued by watching those movies of what was it, Red October and
Mhm.
all that stuff. Ugh. Anyway, but what was it like being on a ship where you're constantly moving? I'm sure ship life was not like being on land.
Definitely not like being on land. I actually enjoyed living on the ship. Um, if we were out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean at night when I was off watch, I would go out and lay on the flight deck and just look
Oh,
up at the
wow.
stars. Because out to sea at night, there's no
Right.
lights. We don't have any exterior lights on the ship, so it's a kind of darkness you can't imagine otherwise. And the stars are so vibrant out there. I loved it. So living on the ship is, I guess it's similar to living in a barracks, other than the fact that you don't have a normal sized bed. You have what we called coffin lockers.
Oh,
And um,
oh, that sounds a little daunting.
well, so the coffin lockers, it's essentially like a shelf, and you lift it up, and underneath what you lift up, your bed part underneath that is where you put all your clothes and your possession. It's like a locker. You put it back
Okay.
down, and on top of there is a mattress, and it's walled in on all sides but one. And there's a seat belt in there. So if you crawl into your bed, if we're going to be hitting a storm or something, you might put your seatbelt on before you go to sleep just to make sure you don't get tossed out of your rack. But I, I enjoyed it. It worked for me.
Wow. Okay. That's wild. I have been on cruise ships before where, you're in a storm and it's rocking pretty bad. And I do remember sticking my leg on the floor just so I wouldn't fall out of bed. Oh, thank goodness I didn't get seasick, but wow. Love it. Interesting. So what was your transition like? So you spent 15 years kind of in the IT world. Did you like that life, or 15 years? That's a long time.
So my last tour in the Navy was as a recruiter. And so after doing 4 years of Navy recruiting, and my regular job in the Navy was radar navigation. So as I was getting out of the Navy, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, what skills do I have that translate to the civilian life, right?
Right. Yeah.
And really the only thing you can do as a radar navigator is either work on a cruise ship or at an airport, working like radar, like air traffic control. And neither of those appealed to me. I love cruising. I don't like working on the cruise ships. It's
Right. You want to
different.
have fun like everybody
Yes,
else. You want to be
exactly.
on vacation.
And
Got
and
it.
I'd always heard that working as a air traffic controller was very, very high stress and high
Yeah.
divorce rates and high suicide rates. And there's just so much to do there that I didn't want anything to do with. So to me, the
Right.
recruiting was a logical skill to translate. And so my first job post Navy was as an IT recruiter. And my job was to essentially find IT applicants for our clients' job openings. So we were like an outsourced HR department, as it were. And that's where it started. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I got into sales where I was on the other end of the process. I would be talking to hiring managers at our client companies and then taking the job requirements back to the recruiters in the role that I used to be in. And then eventually I got into more marketing, and then into management. And at the end, my last job before becoming a JDog owner was the director of IT technical resources for a cybersecurity company in Columbus. My issue with that whole process, that from the time I started as a recruiter till the time I ultimately became a JDog owner,
Right.
it's very lucrative. You can make a ton of money doing what I was doing, and I did, but I absolutely hated the work. I mean, I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I did it for as long as I did because it was lucrative and because I didn't feel like I really had any other options. And
Sure.
I have a family, I have obligations. I wasn't going to leave a very lucrative salary on the table. So
Sure.
that's why I did
Sure.
it for as long as I did.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah, if you have obligations, it can make you stay in a job longer than than you would like. Finally, you decided I'm unhappy enough that I'm going to do something else. So, what made you think of business ownership, and how did you find us?
So I had actually been thinking for years about business ownership, and I didn't have any ideas. I didn't have any disruptive ideas to shake up an industry, something that, all of the big entrepreneurs that you've ever heard of, they all had a disruptive idea. They all had something that was going to shake up an industry. And I didn't have that. I didn't have any special skills. I didn't have anything that was going to differentiate me from anyone else in any industry. But I always knew I could run a business. I always knew I could be successful in that role. I have an MBA. I've been running business for other people for years. So
True.
for me, that felt like something I could do. And so during or COVID, during that
Right.
lockdown, I had some time to think about things.
Everybody did, right?
It was a rough time, and
It
I was
was.
convinced I was going to get laid off during that time. And fortunately, my the owner of the company I worked for did not let me go. He allowed me to actually redefine my role, which was amazing. But nonetheless, I felt like I was always going to be vulnerable, no matter what. In that 15-year span, I got laid off a couple of times, and each time that happened, it wasn't to do anything with my performance. It was always to do with some bean counter somewhere, looking at a spreadsheet, deciding how things were going to go based on the numbers.
Right.
And that's not a good thing to you don't have that sense of security doing that.
Right.
So
And you don't have a sense of controlling your own destiny either. It's
no,
in
you
the
don't.
hands of the bean counter, right? Who
Exactly.
says we could do without this, we could do without that. Yeah.
So for me, that was kind of the motivator. But again, I didn't have any ideas or any, really anything that I felt like I could build a successful business on. So I had determined rather early that franchise ownership was probably a good choice for me
Right.
because I have the skills and the knowledge and the ability to run a business, but I really didn't have that idea or that great branding, that whatever. So I always felt like franchise ownership was a good thing for me. Over the years, I looked at a number of different things. I looked into owning a Chick-fil-A franchise. I looked into owning a
Uh,
Solaris franchise, which Solaris is the phone accessories that you see in the mall, the little kiosks.
right.
So I looked
Yeah.
into to buying one of those. Nothing ever felt right, or the cost of entry was astronomical, or the timing was bad, or there was always something that caused me to not really move, with that. What I found JDog was during COVID. I had been on an email list from Orion, which is they're like a
Right.
veteran advocacy forum, email forum basically that sends out information for, finding jobs and opportunities for veterans. And one of the emails came across while I was sitting at home coming off a Zoom meeting, and the email was, veteran franchise ownership opportunities. I clicked on it, and it was JDog. Probably a month later, I gathered up the courage to contact Terry, and we talked for probably an hour or so on the phone, and kicking the tires and that sort of thing. And
Sure. Sure.
but yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Being a Chick-fil-A owner and all that stuff, yeah, the entry is astronomical. You're right. And so I love that you found us. I think it's awesome. You're almost hitting 3 years. What does it mean to you to be a J Dog and part of our J Dog family?
I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. My name's Jim, so I have become JDog to so many people that I know. My
Oh,
dad,
sure.
my dad calls me JDog. Um, so many of my friends call me JDog now. I have made myself synonymous with the brand. I've really developed a great relationship and a great reputation in my community. And, I've got a perfect 5-star Google rating, which I'm very proud of. And, I have, again, made myself synonymous with the brand. And So, I mean, it's great. I like that there's the camaraderie. I can
Hmm.
pick up the phone and call Joe Urich, or I can
Right.
pick up the phone and call Amber Mowry, or whoever it happens to be. I can call them and ask questions. I can say, hey, you've seen this before, right? How did you deal with this? Or, hey, I ran into this. Have you ever seen that before? Whatever it happens to be. So it's nice having that camaraderie, and it's the one thing that I really missed most about not being in the military anymore was that camaraderie. And we all have that shared commonality. We
Right.
all came from that military background. We're all cut from the same cloth.
True.
So for me, that's kind of the thing that is the most important thing
Hello,
for me.
viewers and listeners. Are you a military veteran or military family member and looking to own your own business? If so, go to jdog.com and check out our two veteran focused franchises, JDog Junk Removal and Hauling and JDog Carpet Cleaning and Floor Care. Our franchisees nationwide are always looking to hire fellow veterans and patriots. JDog is the world's largest military franchise system with hundreds of locations nationwide. We are nearly 90% veteran owned with the goal of reducing the veteran unemployment rate to under 1%. Check us out. Go to jdog.com to learn more. Now, back to the podcast. Yeah, yeah. We love that, our J Dogs are embedded into their community and hyper local, because that's really, I think, what makes you J Dog in Delaware, Ohio, right? Talk to me about, I know that you're involved in a couple, like a neighborhood business group and a property management program in your area. Can you talk to me about some of the community involvement that you're doing there and how has that helped bolster your JDog business?
Sure. So I live in a neighborhood called Glen Ross, and it's a very tight knit neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody. We do a lot of events throughout the year for the neighborhood where we'll have like Easter egg hunts. We have a big, huge Fourth of July celebration with a huge fireworks display, very professional level fireworks display
Wow.
that's put on by the neighborhood, and we all do it ourselves. So it's a self-contained thing. We have a neighborhood business expo where all of the people who own businesses in the neighborhood get together and we do events for the various different Halloween. We do a Halloween thing. We do Fourth of July. You name it. So I provide my services to the neighborhood for those events. We do the cleanup after the fireworks. We provide trash cans for the the various different parties that we have. We've done pool parties at the community pool. We'll provide our trash cans for that, and we come and pick up the trash that people throw away during that process, and so we provide for that. And here just recently, we had a tornado go through our neighborhood, and
Oh, wow.
the day after the tornado, I had one trampoline that had flown up into the tree in my backyard, and my trampoline got just folded over, and there was many other trampolines tossed around the neighborhood like frisbees. And so the day after the storm, I went around and picked up 20 trampolines that had been tossed around
Wow.
and mangled. And I didn't charge anything for that. I put a Facebook post out to the neighborhood and let them know that I was going to come around and pick up any trampolines that people had lost in the storm at no cost. So we picked up 20 trampolines that day, and then we picked up an additional, I think, 11 either the next day or the day after. Um,
Wow.
so that was pretty cool. And then you mentioned the property management company. There's a company by the name of Delmore Dwellings here in Delaware. And I actually developed a relationship with them very early on. It was
Oh, great.
probably within my first 3 months being open. And they had contacted me to do a clean out of one of their units. And they specifically focus on taking care of and providing housing for people who are coming from homelessness or have mental disabilities. So they do a subsidized housing. Uh,
Oh, wow.
and so they contacted me to clean out a unit, which was one of the worst kinds. That it had
Oh, dear.
fleas. Uh,
Oh,
the person had been, well, they had passed away. and
Oh dear.
their animals were in the apartment, and they had fleas, and there was bed bugs, and it was the most awful scenario you could dream up.
Oh
And they
gosh.
had
Yeah.
hired us to come in and clean the place out, which we did. And they were so happy with our efforts that they then asked if we would be willing to be a regular provider for them. And then
Oh
that
wow.
turned into they started saying, "Hey, by the way, we have a resident who doesn't have a couch. Is there any chance you ever pick up couches?" And I'm like, "Yeah, all the time."
All the
So
time, right?
they actually give me wish lists now once every month or two,
Oh wow.
where they'll give me a wish list of stuff their residents might need, and I just check them off and take stuff to them. Those are a couple of the things that we do here in the community that I've been really excited about, and we're expanding that. We've got some new opportunities coming up right now with another property management company, two retirement facilities that I'm doing business with right now, doing very similar type stuff for. And I've just come in contact with a new woman here just within the last week that does a program to help people get past homelessness. And so I'm working with her to have a resource for her to provide furniture and things for them. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And you know that all that networking and community service, again, we love when our J Dogs do that. We teach you guys to do that. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's a win for the community and a win for you, and helps build your business and gets that awesome referral and five-star ratings out there. So
yeah.
that's really awesome. I'm happy to hear that, you're really making progress in that space. That's really awesome. So now we come to the $64,000 question. What is your tactical treasure, Jim? I would love to hear what you're going to share with us today.
Oh my goodness. Tactical treasure. Well, look, I think, and I don't know how much of a treasure this is, but for me, being genuine, being a person who actually is who they say they are, to me, that's the most important thing. When I go out and do a job, customer service is of the highest importance to me. Respecting my customers' property, respecting their time, respecting in some cases the noise level. They might
Yeah.
have a kid sleeping or who knows. But for me, when you go into someone's home, that's their domain, that's their private area, that's their sanctuary. And if you don't respect that and you go in and just, do whatever you're going to do, and you might be fully justified in making the noise, and you might be fully justified in walking back and forth and opening doors. But if you don't do that with respect to who they are and what they are, to me, that's a fail. And
Yeah.
I have a perfect 5-star Google rating because I take the time to sweep up after every job. I take the time to talk to customers, not just be there to do a service, but to, engage with them. Hey, how are
Right.
you today? I'm really happy to be here to help you. Is there anything else I can do for you after we're done? You name it. So to me, yes, that's all customer service, but that's genuineness. That's who I am. And I provide that as a means of, yes, being a good service to people, but more so than that, it's just me being me, and I expect my team to do the same. And to me, that's I guess my tactical treasure, as it were. Um,
That's a tactical treasure. Yeah, being authentic to who you are and extending that 100% awesome customer service, which I taught. My favorite class ever, right?
yeah,
Because it really matters, especially in this day and age, because contractors just kind of aren't what they used to be, and it's important because when you think about it, like you said, your customers, your sanctuary, they're opening up their home, which is their sanctuary, so automatically they're at a vulnerability. And unfortunately there are contractors that may take advantage of that vulnerability, and but we don't, right? You don't. I mean, it's who you are, and that, I think, the five-star ratings, yes, but word of mouth is gigantic. that type of stuff is priceless. You just can't buy that,
It's
you know?
true.
Yeah, that's great. So, any advice, for your fellow veterans that are struggling post service with transition or just finding their way? Um, do you have any little nuggets that you might share?
You know, I remember that process well, getting out and discovering for the first time that civilians don't think the way military people do. And of course, I never had any experience prior to being out of the military. I went from high school to Navy, and so when I got out of the Navy, I was a fully formed adult,
Right.
and
Yeah.
my only experience was military. And my first introduction to walking into a workspace and people not respecting the folks above them in the rank structure. I know it's not the same, but you still have a hierarchy. You still have a pecking order, so to speak. The first time I heard somebody at the low end barking back at somebody on the high end, and I was flabbergasted. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's not appropriate. How do you talk to them like that? I couldn't fathom that that wasn't normal. So I think the transition is made easier when you come into the workplace with a bit of an open mind. You're not going to find the military post military. It's just, it doesn't exist out there. And I think as long as you know that and you come out with the mindset of, I'm going to bring my discipline and my hard work to the table, and I'm not going to be so bothered by some of the things that the military would frown upon. And you just do the best you can in your own space and in your own work. And maybe you rub off on other people in that way, and that's what you have to hope for.
Yeah. Yeah. True. I think that's great advice. And I mean, I've spoken with a lot of veterans that have had your same experience where, they went in right after, high school and never understood adulting at all
Right.
or what it meant to, live as an adult in the civilian world. And some of them have even been in longer than you, like 20 years, and they retire. And then they get out in the world and they're like, what is
Yeah.
this? Yeah, it is a totally different dichotomy. Um, but, you know, I think good for you if you can bring, your military skills into whatever that you do, but you're right. You need to have an open mind and maybe, downgrade your expectations a little bit because it's not going to be military. Not, not unless you're, I don't know. The closest you could get is owning a JDog, right? Or working in a JDog,
Yeah. Well, I
right?
mean, in this way,
Yeah,
I get to create that culture, and
sure.
I get
Yep.
to set that tone. And so not everybody that works for me is a veteran, but they all understand my mindset, and they
Oh,
all know
yeah.
what I expect. And so if nothing else, when they leave JDog someday, and I'm sure most of them will, they're going to take that with them. And I hope they continue to use it.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Yeah. Well, this has been amazing, sir. Thank you so much for sharing everything. And you are an awesome JDog. We love you here at JDog, and you're doing great stuff. Congratulations on 3 years.
Thank you.
And I'm really glad that you're doing awesome in Delaware, Ohio.
Thank you.
So, people in Delaware, Ohio, if you need junk removal, call this guy. Go to the website, jdog.com, put in your zip code. Right?
Absolutely.
Yes. We will definitely make sure that people know where they can find you and how they can connect with you. You have a Facebook page,
Uh-huh.
right?
You do.
Uh,
It's JDog Junk Removal and Hauling, Delaware County.
Delaware County.
Yeah.
Okay. Ohio. Great. All right. Yeah. It's really been awesome to speak to you. Thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you,
time,
Tracy.
Jim. I appreciate hearing your story and obviously hearing how you're doing. My best to your family and to Dawn. And
Thank you.
we'll
I
talk
will tell
soon.
her you said hi.
Okay, please do.
Thanks, Tracy.
Bye bye. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. We just finished up an awesome conversation with Jim Schirtzinger, who is the owner of the JDog Junk Removal and Hauling Delaware, Ohio franchise. JDog Delaware, Ohio, and all of our JDog franchise owners provide junk removal and hauling services and carpet cleaning and floor care services the military way with respect, integrity, and trust. And this is a key aspect of the JDog brand. We uphold these values through all communications and jobs. As members of the military family know, this is the expectation, not an option. When a customer invites us into their home, they feel comfortable and confident knowing the values are being upheld. Our military background has created an unparalleled relationship with customers and is what sets JDog apart from other junk removal companies. Our customers immediately recognize the work ethic and discipline and feel good knowing they are helping employee veterans and their families. Our JDog Junk Removal and Hauling franchise owners aim to keep as much as possible out of the landfill by recycling, donating, and resale. If you are in the Delaware, Ohio area and have junk removal needs, please be sure to contact our veteran-owned and operated team at JDog Junk Removal and Hauling Delaware, Ohio via our website by putting in your zip code or calling our toll-free number 844-GET-JDOG. We have franchise territories all across the country. Hopefully there is a JDog Junk Removal and Hauling franchise servicing your area. And if you're interested in business ownership, JDog might be the right fit for you. We offer franchise opportunities exclusively for veterans and military family members who we find share the same values on which we created our nationally recognized brand: respect, integrity, and trust. Go to jdog.com to request more information about joining the JDog team. Thank you for tuning in. You can find our Tactical Treasures podcast on all your favorite streaming platforms, as well as Vet TV, American Grit, and our dedicated YouTube channel. We are now airing on Reese Across America Radio on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you missed that, please join us for the encore on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can also find Reese Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app. We are also proud to share that our JDog Foundation is a Reese Across America sponsorship group. For each $17 Veterans Reese you sponsor, $5 goes directly back to the JDog Foundation, whose mission is to prevent veteran suicide and heal veterans' mental health and PTSD. You can donate right now at reaseacrossamerica.org/JDog. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon on another podcast. Bye-bye now.